friends, welcome back to our place for another quick meal prepping session. If you've watched my last couple of videos, I'm really trying to maximize my time in the kitchen at the moment. If I'm in there, if I'm chopping and cooking and making a mess, I'm really trying to get as much done as I possibly can, hopefully making a few meals while I'm in there. That is the plan for today. I'm actually going to make two different meals, which I'm going to double, so they're going to make leftovers for our family. We're a family of three. There's myself, my husband, and our daughter. So for each of these meals, I'm aiming to make 6 serves and 2 separate meals. So I'm aiming for 12 serves here today, or 12 meals, however you want to look at it. I look at it as 4 meals because I'm looking at 2 dinners and 2 lunches. So, but 12 serves, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. Anyways, the first thing that I'm aiming for is dinner tonight, which is a Buddha bowl. I'm going to make a whole heap of, or prep a whole heap of separate ingredients so everybody can add the things that they like. It's a build your own Buddha bowl situation, and that way people can have the things they like and we don't have to worry about the things they don't like. We don't have to have people complaining that there are ingredients in their Buddha bowl that they're not the biggest fan of. I do try to do these types of meals as much as possible as I can, just so that everyone can feel like they have a little bit of say in their meals and everyone's happy with the meals that they're eating when it is appropriate. And I can prep the ingredients individually. Buddha bowls lend themselves perfectly for this. Particularly I find with our daughter, she's sort of at that age at the moment where she's really developing her own likes and tastes and wanting to eat her own styles of food, and this way I can be a little bit more accommodating without having to make separate meals for everybody, because that can get a little bit frustrating, as you guys with kids can probably well imagine. So I'm starting off today's meal prep by chopping up everything, but also starting to cook the ingredients that take the longest. I'm getting the sweet potato out in the air fryer. I did just coat it with some really basic seasonings. That was garlic salt and paprika. I like that combination, it works well. I'm also going to do the same with the tofu, and that's just going to have some like smoky barbecue style seasoning on it, because that's what we really like. But again, seasonings is really personal. If you want to follow along at home, you can put whatever seasonings on that you've got at home that your family enjoys. I am going to cook some rice, and I am going to cook my rice at the end, which is a little bit backwards. If I was in a kitchen in a house, I would organize my time a little bit differently to what I'm doing here. But for you guys who are new around here, we actually live in our caravan, and my hot plates, my stove top, is directly underneath the bench that you can see I'm cutting up on at the moment. So I do have to think strategically about how I'm going to approach meal prepping and what I'm going to cook at what time, because once I open that up and heat up those hot plates, I have to wait for them to cool down before I can use my bench space again. It is one of the downsides to living in a very small space, is you do have to think a little bit strategically when you're cooking, and it's just something that you get used to doing. But like I said before, if I was in a house, I would have started the rice at the same time, because then it can all be finished together. Unfortunately, that's just not going to work here in a caravan. We're just going to have to do it a little bit backwards. We're going to get all of the prep done, and then once all the prep is done and I don't need the bench space anymore for chopping and prepping, then we'll get the hot plates and we'll get going. But I am trying to maximize my time, which is why I'm actually doing 2 meals at the same time. It can sometimes get a little bit confusing, and you've got to remember which meal you're doing and what's going into what. But along with the Buddha bowls, I'm doing a crunchy Asian style salad. So I'm taking a bit of a shortcut here with some pre-made coleslaw mix, which just saves me on having to chop up all of the cabbage and the carrot. It's a bit of a shortcut. I find that if I don't need a lot of cabbage, that this is actually a fairly cheap way to do it. This bag cost me $2. If I was to go and buy all of the individual ingredients, it would cost a lot more than that, but I'd also end up with a fair bit of cabbage that I would then have to work out how I'm going to use that in another recipe. And I didn't really have any ideas for that, so I did go the easy route and get the pre-made, pre-chopped bag of coleslaw mix without the dressing, because I don't need the dressing for it. We're going to make our own dressing. It's going to be delicious peanut inspired Asian style type dressing, and I'm just going to flesh this salad out with a whole heap of salad ingredients. So I did buy a bag of baby spinach leaves. Some of it's going to go in the Buddha bowl, some of it's going to go into our salad here, and I'm just using up things that I've purchased, but also things that I've got in the fridge as well. So half of the cucumber is going to go into the salad, the other half is going to go into the Buddha bowl. I really try and think about ingredients that I can use in multiple recipes, and that's a really good way to not only save money but save time as well, because when I'm in there prepping one, I may as well just prep it all. So all of this cucumber gets chopped up today because I'm going to use it in these 2 meals or 4 meals, because it's going to be 2 lunches and 2 dinners. It's going to be great. This sort of salad as well is also fantastic. It keeps really well in the fridge. I keep the salad dressing separate and I just dress it when we're going to eat it. I find it doesn't go soggy, but it does keep in there for a couple of days, and it's great grab and go type meal. So if you're in a rush and you don't have time to actually make lunch, you just have time to eat it, then I can just grab this out of the fridge ready to go. Or if you want to take a packed lunch, again, this meal preps in advance really well, and you can prep this for a couple of days and then just put the salad dressing on at the end when you're ready to eat it. I really like the freshness of this type of crunchy salad. It's really nice. At the moment it's still really hot here where we are, so having something that's nice and refreshing with like the cucumber, and it does have tinned edamame in it. You could use frozen if you wanted to as well. Tinned is just what we have access to, so that's what we're going to use. But yeah, again, just a really simple, quick, easy salad that literally took me 5 minutes, I think, to chop everything up while I was already in the kitchen making a mess. My chopping board was dirty, my knife was dirty. Makes sense to get in there and do 2 jobs. Let me know in the comments if that's something that you guys do or you find useful. It's something that we started doing while we're here in the caravan, pretty much because it just frees up time. It is one of those things we have to sort of think about. Like I said, not only the logistics of what am I going to cook in which order, because once those hot plates are hot, I can't use the bench anymore, but also trying to come up with meals, particularly trying to eat as much whole food as we possibly can, not being tied to the kitchen and having to cook all the time. I've just found that this sort of meal prepping, when I have, this took me about an hour to do all of this, but you know, I got 4 meals done, which freed me up for those other times where I didn't have to cook dinner and I didn't have to cook lunch. But let me know if that's something that you guys find interesting. Let me know if that's something that you do, or if you would find benefit doing that in your life. I've started doing it out of necessity, but yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments. Also, let me know if you have any tips for this sort of meal prep. If you've been doing it for a while, what are the things that you find helpful? I don't have the world's largest fridge. I do have a fairly large fridge for a caravan, but I don't have a lot of fridge space, so that's the other thing that I need to think about as well and be mindful of. I can't prep for a week because I simply do not have that amount of room in my fridge, but I can prep for a couple of days at a time. And then if I'm only cooking every other day, it just makes life a little bit easier, I think. Anyways, back to cooking and what we're actually doing in this video. The sweet potatoes are done. They took about 20 minutes. I did try to chop them so they were a size that I knew would cook in about 20 minutes at 200 degrees. And the tofu just went in. They're going to take about 10 minutes outside. I'm also going to fry up some broccoli as well, which won't take very long, but I'm going to do that in the air fryer as well. I'm really enjoying frying vegetables in the air fryer. It gives them a bit of a different texture, particularly if you're going to put them into something like a Buddha bowl. They end up a little bit crispied and charcoaled on the outside. Really nice. The other thing I'm doing here is making a quick pickle for the red onion. I really enjoy this. I started doing this a couple of years ago. If you don't like eating raw onion, this could be a bit of a game changer for you. I do find that the pickling takes the zing of the raw onion away. I know that sounds really weird. The first time somebody said that to me, I was like, but it's vinegar, like it's going to make it more zingy, but it doesn't. It actually tenderizes the onion a little bit, and it takes away a little bit of that raw, I don't know, bite that raw onion has. This is the broccoli going in now. And again, this is only going to take a few minutes. I'll give it 5 minutes and then give it a bit of a shake, see what it looks like, and then put it in for a bit longer if necessary. I'm not putting anything on the broccoli. I am literally just cooking it. And I think this one took about 7 minutes. Again, it's going to depend on the size of the broccoli. I could have chopped the broccoli up so they were all even sized pieces, but honestly, I just couldn't be bothered, so I didn't. Now that I've prepped everything, it is time to cook my rice. So we're going to get the hot plates out from underneath. I do like to rinse off my rice and my quinoa. There's a couple of different ways that you can do it. This way, I'm just trying to show you guys how dusty they can get. I think this happens in every kitchen, but I'm noticing it's a lot worse in the caravan because we're in such a dusty environment all the time, and I do find that everything gets dusty. And I don't keep my rice in an actual container. I just keep it in the bag. I just wrap it up. I don't have the space to put it in an airtight container. It's just the way it is. So I just have to put up with rinsing it. So it is what it is. It does get all the dust out, and you can have a look for any weird little particles. I'm doing a 50-50 mix here. So I've actually got 1.5 cups of white rice and 1.5 cups of quinoa. And I'm going to cook it using the absorption method. It is my absolute favorite way of cooking rice. Basically, I'm adding 1.5 times the amount of water to the rice. So I've got 3 cups of rice and quinoa. I put in 4.5 cups of water. I'm going to put this on the hot plate, bring it to a boil. Once it starts to boil, I'm going to turn it down. You can see it's boiling, so I'm going to turn it down to a simmer. The moment that I cannot see any water left on top, I'm going to turn it completely off and move it off the hot plate and let it sit for another 10 minutes. It's going to continue cooking under its own steam, absorbing the last of the water that's in there. And then after the 10 minutes, we'll go in and give it a nice fluff. And I always end up with beautiful, fluffy, soft rice. I have tried cooking in my pressure cooker, which has also got a rice cooker setting on it, and I find it always makes it go gluggy. I don't know. I just don't love it. I don't have a rice cooker. Like I said, I've got limited space, so I've got a pressure cooker that is also a slow cooker that is also a rice cooker. But I just don't love the rice in there, so I do it on the stove top. I could do it outside in the pressure cooker to save the space on the bench, but I just don't love the way that it comes out, to be totally honest. It is now dinner time. So I did actually prep all the veggies earlier in the day, and I cooked the rice at dinner time, and I've cooked enough rice for 2 lots of Buddha bowls. So we've got this again for dinner the next night, and I've got rice to go in the salad, which I will put in the fridge and cool, and then I will mix the salad up tomorrow when we go to have that for lunch. But these Buddha bowls are a build your own adventure. I love it because everyone can do what they want. And our family, although we eat fairly similar, there are a few things that we have a little quirks as you do in any family where things are just a little bit different. So I'm actually making Charlotte's bowl here at the moment. She is not a huge fan of tomatoes, and she's not going to eat those pickled onions, but this is her bowl and she's happy with it. She can chuck whatever sauce on it that she wants. We did dress these with sauces. This is Shannon's, this is my bowl. I made a avocado sauce from some leftover avocado in my freezer. It wasn't great, so I'm not going to share that recipe with you. But this recipe, this sauce that goes on my crunchy Asian style salad was fantastic, and I will definitely be making this one again. So I was using what was left in my peanut butter jar, plus I added in about another 2 to 3 tablespoons of peanut butter. Really wanted it to be very peanutty. That was the idea with this sauce. I did add some extra olive oil to make it a little bit runnier, and then the rest of the liquid to make it saucy comes from the maple syrup, which I added for sweetness, and some tamari sauce. You could also use soy sauce. It's basically the same thing, except the tamari is gluten-free. Also threw in some garlic and onion powder. Alternatively, you could add fresh garlic, and you could probably add some onion if you wanted to. This was just a really quick salad dressing that I made, but actually turned out fantastically. And then use the jar to give it a good shake up. So I chose to keep the salad and the salad dressing separate, and we just dressed the salads when we were ready to eat. And I found that the salad stayed crispy. It didn't go soggy because of the salad dressing. So that's totally up to you if that's the way you want to do it or if you don't. But I found that worked really well. The rice and quinoa that I made the day before, I did pop in the fridge to cool. So this is a cold salad, where the Buddha bowls we had, we actually warmed some of the ingredients back up again when we had them. So that was a mix of a warm and a cold dinner. This is a cold lunch. Mixing this all up together, and like I said, this meal preps really, really well. So if you wanted to put this into individual containers and have it ready for lunch, you could definitely do that. That would work really well as a meal prep. We had this for lunch 2 days in a row, and we had the Buddha bowls for dinner 2 days in a row. And basically that was a cook one day and then didn't have to cook the next day kind of adventure. That's the way I like to roll. That definitely makes my life a lot easier on that second day if I don't have to worry about being in the kitchen. I'm quickly dishing up my lunch. Shannon and Charlotte were actually out at the time, but I was hungry and I wasn't going to wait. So you can see this is my lunch. It was absolutely delicious. And like I said, we had it again for lunch the next day, and was really happy with the way this held up in the fridge, and it would definitely last 3 or 4 days, I think, without any problems. And here is the delicious sauce. The thing I will say about the sauce is it needs to be at room temperature to be runny. If you do keep it in the fridge, which you probably want to, I kept mine in the fridge after I made it, but it will solidify a little bit with the oils that are in there. Just bring it out and let it sit out on the bench, come back to room temperature before you try to use it. But there we go. Quick, easy meal prep. Like I said, this took me about an hour to prep all of this, and then we had lunch and dinner for 2 days, which is absolutely awesome. Made my life so much easier, and they were delicious meals. So thanks so much for watching, and I hope you guys are having a great day.